What's up, Multiverse? Dr. Dave here. Welcome to the Geek Lounge. So tonight is one of my favourite events in the WWE. I am, of course, talking about the Royal Rumble. And to celebrate, we're going to be counting down my top 30 most wanted WWE Funko Pops. And just recently, the latest wave of WWE figures went up for pre-order, and a few of those definitely would have made the cut. Io Sky, LA Knight for sure, and especially X-Pac. I think they've done a great job with that one based on the glams, but opportunity missed for sure to do a 1, 2, 3 kid chase variant. Something else I wanted to highlight, I'm not sure if you guys saw these leaks shared a couple weeks back, but we are finally getting a Dudley Boyz 2-pack, which looks to be one of the Hall of Fame releases, along with a Hall of Fame Roddy Piper 2. I wanted to highlight this as the Dudley Boyz would have been in my top 10, probably even top 5, but now that they're on the way, we don't need to include them. And that actually leads me on to just a few quick rules. Firstly, yes, tag teams are allowed. I know that's more than 30 individuals, but are we really going to turn away tag teams? Number 2, I won't be including any further leaks. So these were shared by Scarlet Joker, Funko Info, and Rocco Cyrus on social media for release this summer, and to be honest, their leaks come through like 90% of the time. So we're getting an updated CM Punk, which is great news for many, as his only other releases came back in 2013, and they're pretty expensive to now grab. An updated Punk definitely would have made my top 30. There's another Roman Reigns on the way, I'm assuming maybe with the Ula Fala. There's just like no other further info with that. There's an A+ Jade Cargill, not sure what they're including to make it A+ pop, but interested to find out nonetheless. Again, she would have likely made the list. And then we have a 2-pack of the New Age Outlaws, which definitely would have made the list. Though I gotta say, I'm surprised by this, which leads us on to rule number 3. Unrealistic choices will not be included, and what I mean by that are mainly those that are contracted elsewhere. You know, I'd love to have a Dean Ambrose Shield Funko Pop to complete that trio. WWE debut Chris Jericho would be awesome. Big Show, good old JR, it'd be great to have the other voice of the Attitude Era to go along with the King. I was a big ECW fan, so I'd love a Taz. Even Jushin Thunder Liger, a WWE Hall of Famer, could look absolutely sick, but these guys are contracted elsewhere, so I'm not sure how realistic they are. But then again, that New Age Outlaws 2-pack is coming, and Billy is contracted to AEW, so who knows? Rule number 4, we're going to be starting with number 1 and counting up to 30 as opposed to the other way round. So although it's top 30, we're counting upwards as if it was a Royal Rumble match, I think, or hope that makes sense. And the last 2 quick ones. Number 5, make sure you comment below what WWE Funko Pops you guys want to see. And number 6, please like the video if you enjoy it. But without any further ado, let's find out who drew number 1. And that is going to be Seth freaking Rollins, or I should say flamboyant Seth freaking Rollins. So we've had the 2 Shield variants with the black and white outfits, and more recently we did get this updated variant, but I gotta say, it just wasn't flamboyant enough for me. I need him in one of these crazy, over-the-top outfits, suits, or entrance attire, whatever you want to call it. I just definitely want to see something more flamboyant, and maybe even with some sparkles too. Coming in at number 2 is Jesse the Body Ventura. The WWE Hall of Famer and former governor of Minnesota recently returned to our screens with his 2 appearances on the Saturday Night Main Event specials, and it definitely brought back some memories for me. Starting his career in the mid-70s, his gimmick was that of a beach bodybuilder bully, hence the moniker The Body. He would capture the Pacific Northwest Championship twice and the tag titles 5 times before moving to the AWA, where he would win the AWA tag titles with Adrian Adonis. After losing the titles, both would move to the WWE but would be unable to capture the tag titles. In fact, The Body would never actually win WWE Gold, despite challenging for the World Championship on several occasions against the likes of Bob Backlund and Hulk Hogan. He would eventually retire from in-ring competition and go on to become one of the best colour commentators in the business. Another who liked to dress rather flamboyantly. I think with the right gear and right level of panache, he too could make for a really cool pop. Coming in at number 3 is Logan Paul. Certainly not the most popular figure within the WWE, or really outside it, for a multitude of reasons, though you can't deny the kid is talented and kinda ready-made for professional wrestling. With that said, I don't know how well the figure will do. As I already said, he's definitely not the most popular, but he still does have a fan base, and although I wouldn't say I'm personally his biggest fan, I don't really hate the guy either, and think the former United States champion could make for a cool pop, especially if he's sticking around like he says he is. Coming in at number 4 is Sable, another who may not be a popular choice, let's say by modern standards, with many feeling she only got by on looks and being a sex symbol, but there's no doubting the one-time WWE Women's Champion was one of the most popular stars during the legendary Attitude Era. She would go on to grace the cover of Playboy magazine 3 times, with the April 1999 issue being one of the highest sold in the publication's history. She would shortly leave the company after this, citing allegations of sexual harassment and unsafe working conditions, but would later return for a short run in 2003. Given her popularity during the Attitude Era, I honestly would say I feel she deserves a place in the WWE Hall of Fame, but also as a Funko Pop, though I suppose there are question marks for this one coming anytime soon, given she is the wife of the Beast Brock Lesnar, whose name seems to be persona non grata for the time being. In at number 5 is Hacksaw Jim Duggan. Now, if the last 2 entries were unpopular, this one is definitely the opposite. The ever lovable and patriotic WWE Hall of Famer was actually the winner of the first ever Royal Rumble just over 37 years ago on January 24th, 1988, eliminating the one-man gang to win it. That original match was only 20 superstars and didn't guarantee a future world title shot, but it kicked off one of the most popular events on the WWE calendar, so it's only fitting Hacksaw is on the list. He sadly never won any championship gold in the WWE, but was a United States champion as well as technically the last ever television champion in WCW when he found it in a dumpster. Yeah, the less we talk about 2000 WCW, the better. I'd certainly be happy with a Hacksaw Pop, and carrying his trusted 2x4 with a thumbs up would be very fitting. Entry number 6 is our first tag team, and I'm going with the Hart Foundation. If it wasn't obvious by my t-shirt, I have always been a Bret Hart guy from my early days of watching professional wrestling, and that all started with the Hart Foundation. Another fun Royal Rumble fact, Bret Hart was actually the first ever superstar to enter a Royal Rumble match. He drew number 1 those 37 years ago, and his partner Jim the Anvil Neidhart actually drew number 4. They also shared the second ever elimination in a Royal Rumble match, dumping out fellow Hall of Famer Tito Santana during that match. Do you guys know the first ever superstar eliminated from the Royal Rumble and who eliminated them? If so, drop a comment below. But yeah, I definitely need a Hart Foundation 2-pack. The brother-in-laws started teaming in 1985 and will go on to become 2-time WWE Tag Team Champs before disbanding in 1991, where Bret went on to have a legendary singles career. They would reunite as the Hart Foundation in 1997, but this time as a faction with fellow family members Owen Hart and the British Bulldog, as well as close family friend Brian Pillman. Sadly, Jim passed away in 2018, but his legacy lives on with his daughter Natalya, WWE's longest serving female superstar. We currently have 2 variants of Bret already, but never have we had the Anvil, and a 2-pack is perfect to rectify that. In at number 7 is Tommy Dreamer. I mentioned at the beginning of the video I was a big ECW fan back in the day, so we are definitely including a few on the list, and you gotta go with a man often called the heart and soul of ECW. If we ever were to do an ECW Mount Rushmore, the innovator of violence's face would surely be on it. Dreamer would become a 3-time ECW Tag Team Champion and then finally win the big one at SummerSlam 2000, only to lose it 30 minutes later to Justin Credible. He would later on win the ECW World title again in the revamped WWE ECW, becoming the only man to win both incarnations of the title, though the least said about WWE ECW, the better. He would also become a 14-time WWE Hardcore Champion, and now works with TNA both in front of the camera and behind the scenes. Giving us so many great and extreme moments, it would be pretty cool if we got him in that trademark arms out pose, and maybe even a bloody variant, but I don't think that's something WWE would necessarily sign off on, though I do think the pop is a possibility given WWE's new partnership with TNA. Coming in at number 8, he's back. Not sure if he's better than ever, but I am of course talking about Eric Bischoff, one of the most polarizing and dare I say controversial figures in the history of pro wrestling. Love or hate him, there is no denying he played a huge part in popularizing pro wrestling in the United States after a lull period in the early to mid 90s with the creation of the NWO, and was definitely a figurehead during those crazy and exciting times that were the Monday Night Wars. He would of course go on to make several mistakes later in the Monday Night Wars to the point where they were defeated and then purchased by Vince McMahon in 2001. The unthinkable then happened as Bischoff debuted in the WWE in 2002 as the general manager of Raw and had a solid 3-year run as an authority figure, feuding with the likes of Stone Cold Steve Austin and John Cena. As a pop, I would personally want him from those days during the Monday Night Wars with the dark hair and donning the famous NWO black and white. Entry number 9 is Mark Henry. The Hall of Famer and former World Heavyweight Champion went through a number of different gimmicks throughout his WWE career, from the early World's Strongest Man days to the Nation of Domination to the entertaining yet somewhat disturbing Sexual Chocolate, and of course the Hall of Pain, which was personally my favourite run of his. And who of course can forget what is arguably the biggest swerve in the history of pro wrestling, when we all thought he was legit retiring back in 2013, delivering such a sincere and emotional speech which had several audience members crying, and then BAM! He slams John Cena into oblivion, fooling us all. Prior to that, he did become a one-time WWE ECW World Champion and also won the World Heavyweight Championship, defeating Randy Orton. He would retire in 2017, transitioning into a backstage producer's role, and then joined AEW in 2021 as a commentator and coach. Having finished up his time with AEW at the beginning of last summer, now would be a perfect time to make the world's strongest pop. Entry number 10 is Bron Breakker, who himself is somewhat of a powerhouse, but also happens to have quite ridiculous speed and athleticism. The current reigning Intercontinental Champion is certainly a freak athlete, and at just 27 years old, the sky is the limit for this kid. I have no doubt he'll be a future world champion. His wrestling gear has also given us some quite unique and colourful designs the past few years, so there will be plenty of choice when it comes to giving him the Funko Pop treatment. In fact, a lot of that gear is inspired by our next entrance, which, if you hadn't guessed, is the Steiner brothers, coming in at number 11. The Hall of Fame tag team are of course Bron's relatives, Rick being his father and Scott his uncle. And I was actually a pretty big fan of the Steiners back in the day. They were this hard-hitting and intense all-American alpha tag team that just really beat the snot out of everyone. They teamed up with runs in early WCW, WWE, ECW and New Japan Pro Wrestling before eventually returning to WCW, where they will remain until its closure. During that time, they became two-time WWE Tag Team Champions, two-time IWGP Tag Team Champions, as well as seven-time WCW Tag Team Champions. They did eventually separate a couple years into their return to WCW, with Scott turning his back on his brother and joining the legendary NWO and creating his popular Big Bad Booty Daddy gimmick, which in its own right with the chainmail headgear would make for a pretty sick pop. But I'd honestly be happy with a Steiner Brothers 2-pack. I mean, we can have both actually, right? Why not? A Hall of Fame 2-pack like we saw earlier with the Dudleys, and a separate release for Scott. Why not? Entry number 12 is Bobby the Brain Heenan, in my opinion, and in the opinion of many, the greatest manager in the history of the business. The late great WWE Hall of Famer managed a proverbial who's who in the WWE during a 10-year period between the mid-80s and mid-90s, including fellow Hall of Famers Big John Studd, King Kong Bundy, who somehow is not in the Hall of Fame, sort that out WWE, the Brainbusters, Harley Race, Mr. Wonderful Paul Orndorff, Mr. Perfect Ravishing Rick Rude, Lex Luger, another who needs to go into the Hall of Fame by the way, the Nature Boy Ric Flair, and of course Andre the Giant. And it's said that his promotion of the Andre Hogan match at WrestleMania 3 earned him the biggest payday of any manager in the history of the business. Not just the greatest manager of all time, but also one of the best color commentators too. He would depart WWE for WCW in 1994 and leaving in 2000, just 6 months before the promotion went out of business. He would make sporadic appearances for the WWE and other independent promotions before sadly passing away in 2017 at the age of 72. We definitely need a Bobby the Brain Heenan Funko Pop in one of those trademark flashy suits. Coming in at number 13, we have Damian Priest, and I gotta be honest with you guys, I wasn't a massive fan of his when he first came up to the main roster. I thought and still think he has a really good look, but there was something missing during that early run between 2021 and 2022. And then his work as a member of the Judgment Day, eventually Money in the Bank winner, and World Heavyweight Championship run definitely made me a fan. Kicked out of the Judgment Day last summer and now back as a lone wolf over on SmackDown as of this year. Let's see what awaits the bisexual Undertaker next. As I said, I think he has a great look and would certainly make for a really cool pop, and although it may now be considered old, I think him carrying the Senior Money in the Bank briefcase would be pretty cool. I mean, they've made a few with briefcases before. Entry number 14 is Sabu, the man aptly named the homicidal, suicidal, genocidal, death-defying maniac. He was a revolutionary, a pioneer, and an innovator of the hardcore style of wrestling in the mid to late 90s, incorporating a lot of chair and table spots into his matches, an influence we continue to see with pro wrestlers today. As I've already said a couple of times, I was a big ECW fan back in the day, and Sabu was definitely one of my favourites. His matches were always so entertaining, and I loved his entrance music too. He would also be another that you would surely have to add to the Mount Rushmore of ECW, being only the second of 3 to be a Triple Crown champion in the OG ECW. Let me know in the comment section below if you guys know who the first and third were. Although his short run with the WWE was largely forgettable, apart from a really good match with Rey Mysterio that was ruined with a very much non-ECW style finish, I mean WWE ECW in itself was just plain awful, I think his time in ECW and influence on the business deserve a place in the Hall of Fame as well as in the Hall of Pops. His signature pointing up pose would be ideal, just not sure that would be possible with Funko's big head aesthetic. Yeah, it might look a little weird. Entry number 15 is our next tag team, and that is going to be Demolition. Some more individuals who are well overdue a WWE Hall of Fame induction. The 3-time WWE Tag Team Champions hold the 4th overall longest reign of any tag title in WWE history, and technically the longest reign as WWF/WWE Tag Team Champions before Raw and SmackDown incorporated brand-specific tag titles. I just said I love Sabu's entrance theme. These guys also had a banging entrance theme back in the day, and a banging look to boot, clad in studded black leather outfits, no doubt influenced by Lord Humongous from Mad Max 2 The Road Warrior. They also wore leather-covered hockey masks on the way to the ring before revealing the awesome face paint made up typically of a combination of black, white, red, and silver. Sadly, their run with the WWE wasn't super long, and bar a repackaged gimmick in the early 90s for Smash as the rather forgettable Repo Man, Demolition disbanded in early 1991 and were never to be seen again on a WWF/WWE screen. A few lawsuits did follow over the years, perhaps one of, if not the main reason they're not in the Hall of Fame. I'm hoping it's a case of time heals all wounds and they go in, and we can also get an awesome Funko Pop 2-pack, maybe also incorporating the removable leather hockey masks. That could be cool. And we've just reached the halfway point, guys. I just wanted to say, if you are enjoying the video, please do give us that thumbs up, that like. It really does help us out a lot. And if you are enjoying the content overall, please do consider subscribing. We've got tons of content on the way. Funko, Lego statues, figures, TCGs, all that fine jazz. But for now, let's get back and see who drew entrant number 16. And I'm going with Solo Sikoa, and I've got to say, I'm a little bit surprised he wasn't in the latest wave of figures, considering the Bloodline story has pretty much been front and center of the WWE the past few years. But I guess these things take time, from concept to licensor approval to production. But we've seen him go from Bloodline Enforcer to self-appointed Tribal Chief to who knows what's going to happen next. And although there is probably more excitement around his more charismatic real-life cousin Jacob Fatu, Solo has definitely grown on me the past year or so. I've certainly been enjoying his work and think he needs the Funko Pop treatment like his father and brothers before him. I'm just a little undecided what I want, because on the one hand you've got his in-ring gear, but on the other hand I do like the black suit red shirt look, or even the red suit black shirt look. I mean, I guess there's a chase opportunity there. Either way, let me know in the comment section below. Do you guys prefer your WWE Funko Pops with in-ring gear or entrance/promo gear? Coming in at number 17, we have JBL John Bradshaw Layfield. Now, apart from the first few years of his career, the WWE Hall of Fame has actually been a WWE lifer. Starting out as a rough and tumble Texas cowboy, he then eventually became a tag team wrestler, firstly with fellow Hall of Famer Barry Windham as the New Blackjacks, and then with another Hall of Famer in Ron Simmons, initially as the Acolytes and a part of the Undertaker's Ministry of Darkness, before changing their gimmick to the very popular cigar smoking, beer drinking and gambling bar brawlers for hire, the APA. Following the disbandment of the popular tag team in 2004, Bradshaw would change his name to JBL John Bradshaw Layfield, incorporating his real life first and surname, as well as developing the gimmick of an arrogant Texan millionaire, also somewhat mirroring his real life business ventures and success. He would go on to have a very successful singles career, becoming the 10th overall Grand Slam champion before transitioning to the role of commentator, and I think a JBL pop in his suit sporting the cowboy hat could look great, but what about a new pop ride? We've had Eddie with the lowrider and Stone Cold with the Zamboni. What about JBL with the bullhorn limo? That could look pretty sweet. And if we've got JBL in at number 17, we gotta go with Ron Simmons in at number 18. The fellow WWE Hall of Famer was actually inducted by his longtime friend and tag team partner, and was also a two-time All-American at Florida State, and had a somewhat short pro football career in the early to mid-80s before starting a wrestling career with Jim Crockett Promotions in 1986. Long before teaming with Bradshaw, he was a part of Doom with Butch Reed, winning the NWA tag titles from the Steiner Brothers in 1990, and would then eventually make history in 1992, defeating Big Van Vader to become the WCW World Heavyweight Champion, and with it, the first recognised black man to do so. Sadly enough, that would be the last singles title Ron would ever win, but he still went on to have a successful career, eventually winding up in the WWE in 1996 with that short-lived and much maligned Farouk Assad Gladiator gimmick, before forming the Nation of Domination and guiding and mentoring a certain someone who would eventually reach superstardom. Later, he would form the Acolytes and APA with Bradshaw, capturing the WWE Tag Team titles on 3 separate occasions. Now, whereas the Gladiator Farouk Assad gimmick was pretty lame, it could actually make for a pretty fun Funko Pop. The Nation version, of course, would be cool. There's obviously the classic look winning the WCW World title, that could be pretty fitting, though if I actually had to make the choice, I'd go with that damn look. Like, that was pretty funny when he came out and said damn with everything. And you know what? Hell, just give me an APA 2-pack as well. I mean, imagine they included their door as a prop. That would be sick. Entry number 19 is Kairi Sane. The former pirate princess and now member of Damage Control got her start in Japan's world-famous wrestling promotion Stardom, where she held numerous of their titles, including the world title, defeating fellow Damage Control member Io Sky back in 2015. Fast forward to 2017, she would sign with the WWE and win the inaugural Mae Young Classic, defeating the likes of Bianca Belair, Dakota Kai, Toni Storm, as well as Shayna Baszler in the finals, before defeating her once more the following year to win the NXT Women's Championship. She would be drafted to the main roster in 2019 and form the Kabuki Warriors with fellow Japanese sensation Asuka, winning the women's tag team titles on 2 separate occasions, though she would leave the WWE for a short period, returning to Stardom, as well as becoming New Japan Pro Wrestling's inaugural IWGP Women's World Champion, only to then return to the WWE in early 2023, forming Damage Control and eventually reuniting with Asuka too. I believe Kairi is currently out with an injury, but I hope to see her back soon, and I really hope to see her in Funko Pop form. I think she has this really cool look, especially with her entrance gear. Yeah, that can make for one sick looking pop. Entry number 20 is going to be the American Badass Undertaker. Now, I know, we already have several variants of Taker, including the Boneyard variant, which somewhat resembles the American Badass persona, but hear me out. American Badass Undertaker on the motorcycle. As I said earlier, we've already had pop rides with Eddie and Stone Cold, and pops on motorcycles have been made in the past. For instance, with Marvel, we've had the likes of Ghost Rider and Wolverine, and we also got Daryl Dixon in The Walking Dead. So it's more than doable, and after his appearance on Raw's debut on Netflix, I just gotta have it. We are down to our final 10. Entry number 21 then is the Sandman, my final ECW entrant on this list, and you gotta say, another who would without question be on that ECW Mount Rushmore. Let me know in the comments below who is the 4th. For me, it's either RVD or Taz. Quite a tough choice. Now, earlier I said I really enjoyed Sabu's entrance theme. Well, the Sandman has without question one of the best of all time, the aptly named Enter Sandman by Metallica, albeit used without permission. But I always have great memories of him entering through the crowd, fans blaring out the lyrics, him drinking like 20 beers, before Stone Cold I might add, and then crushing the cans over his head to bust himself open. Yeah, just such great times, though they could often drag a little bit like The Undertaker. By the way, does anyone know who the first to enter through a crowd on a regular basis was? Because I kind of feel it may have been the Sandman, and I'd love it if they made the 5-time ECW World Champion into a pop, carrying his trusted kendo stick. I mean, hell, I'd love it if he came with a beer, a cigarette, and a slightly busted open forehead, though I guess that's really not PG at all, so I'd certainly settle for the prior. In at number 22, we have the Godfather. I mean, talk about a gimmick that just would not work in today's world. Yet he was so freaking over in the Attitude Era, but then that was pretty much the era of sex, violence, and a bunch of good old crazy moments. What a time to be alive. The Hall of Famer started started his career as the Soul Taker in the late 80s with the USWA and also made some appearances for New Japan, often teaming with Bam Bam Bigelow, another by the way who should be in the Hall of Fame, before finding his way to the WWE at the suggestion of his good old friend The Undertaker. He would debut as the voodoo practitioner Papa Shango before leaving for a short stint and then returning as the Supreme Fighting Machine Kama before once again leaving for a short stint and then finally settling with the WWE in 1997, joining Ron Simmons' Nation of Domination. Following the Nation's split in 1998 is when he had his most successful run as the hugely popular persona of the Godfather, surrounding himself with his scantily clad ladies of the night. Yeah, it's probably a better word to use, and even winning the WWE Intercontinental title. He'd make for such a sick pop with the waistcoat, the hat, the jewellery, I mean, dare I say the cigar? Again, maybe not quite PG, and to be fair, although the Papa Shango gimmick didn't really work out, he actually looked great, and that could make for a pretty sick chase variant. Certainly a darn stretch better than that right to censor crap. Coming in at number 23, main event Jey Uso. I gotta say, if you told me 10 years ago, scratch that, 5 years ago, that Jey Uso would end up being one of the most popular superstars in the WWE, I would have laughed you out the door. But here we are with the Yeet Master going strong. The former Intercontinental Champion and 10-time Tag Team Champion certainly has one of, if not maybe even the best entrance in the WWE right now and continues to go from strength to strength. I've no doubt he'll get that illustrious world title reign everyone wants at some point. In terms of Funko Pops, Jey currently has 2 variants, both released in a 2-pack with his brother Jimmy, and I think at this point he's due a single release, donning the Yeet gear, and maybe even pose mid-Yeet if they can do it. And for entrant number 24, it is going to be Tiffy time. Since debuting back in 2021 on NXT, Tiffany Stratton has skyrocketed to superstardom in such a short space of time. I mean, her career as a wrestler is less than 4 years old, and she's already been the NXT Women's Champion, she's been Miss Money in the Bank, and successfully cashed that in to become the current reigning WWE Women's Champion. The former weightlifter and gymnast is blessed with natural athleticism and in my opinion has the presence, charisma and look of a superstar, and at just 25 years of old, the sky really is the limit for the blonde bombshell. In terms of a Funko Pop, you could have her pointing at her wrist, insinuating what time it is, maybe even with the Money in the Bank briefcase, we haven't had a female pop with that yet, or even just commemorate her world title win and have her with the belt. Either way, it's about Tiffy time that we got a Tiffany Stratton Funko Pop. Entry number 25 is Yokozuna. The behemoth was billed from the land of the rising sun when in fact he was actually part of the Anoa'i wrestling family, with the likes of Roman Reigns, Rikishi, Umaga and The Rock among his cousins, Jimmy, Jay and Solo his nephews, and Afa and Sika his uncles. The Hall of Famer would debut with Mr. Fuji as a stereotypical sumo wrestler and would go on to win the 1993 Royal Rumble, eliminating Macho Man Randy Savage to win it. Fun fact, the 93 Royal Rumble was the first time they introduced a WrestleMania title shot for the winner, and he would go on to defeat Bret the Hitman Hart at WrestleMania 9, only to drop the title to Hulk Hogan 2 minutes later. The less said about that, the better. He would, however, regain the title from Hogan later that year and drop it back to Bret Hart the following WrestleMania. After this, his status among the main event would slowly fade, though he did become a 2-time tag team champion with Bret's brother Owen before leaving the WWE in 1998. He then sadly passed away while on a wrestling tour here in the UK back in 2000 at the age of just 34, the same age his tag team championship partner Owen Hart tragically died at the year prior. Yoko is definitely due the Funko Pop treatment, though I would say Funko haven't done too great a job with the bigger wrestlers. In my opinion, the likes of Vader and Bam Bam Bigelow just look like they have beer bellies as opposed to being big. And Yoko was even bigger than those guys, so hopefully they could do a bit better if we were to get a Yokozuna in the future. Entrant number 26 is Mr. Perfect. Sadly, like many from that era, another legend, another Hall of Famer taken from us way too soon. Kurt Hennig was a second-generation wrestler, the son of the legendary Larry the Axe Hennig. His own son Joe Hennig would also eventually step through the ropes and be better known by his in-ring name Curtis Axel, paying tribute to both his father and grandfather. Mr. Perfect started his career with the AWA, the same promotion which made his father famous, having short stints with the WWE and Pacific Northwest Wrestling before returning to the AWA, where he started to garner more attention, becoming a tag team champion with the late great Scott Hall, and even beating Nick Bockwinkel to become AWA World Heavyweight Champion, his only major career world title win, which he held for just over a year before heading back to the WWE. He would have a solid start to his WWE career, going undefeated for more than a year before winning the Intercontinental title, and also holding it for more than a year before dropping it to fellow Hall of Famer Bret the Hitman Hart, who, like many, have spoken just how perfect, yes pun intended, his in-ring skills were. Sadly, injuries would halt his progress in the WWE. Between several breaks and in-ring returns, he would become Ric Flair's executive consultant, as well as feuding with him, a special guest referee, and also take on the role of color commentator before heading to WCW in 1997 for a somewhat less memorable role, where he would join the NWO and have a short reign as United States Champion. He did make a final return to the WWE in 2002, entering the Royal Rumble that year as the number 25 entrant. I kind of missed a beat there, right? Having him as number 26, I should have had him as number 25, but he was one of the final 3 competitors before being eliminated by eventual winner Triple H. He would sadly pass away just a year later at the age of 44. In my eyes, and the eyes of many, he's definitely one of the best to never win the WWE World title, and would just make for a perfect pop in that classic singlet, where you've got the choice of multiple colours, and you could even give him either the classic Intercontinental title or that towel he always carried as an accessory. And then there were 4. Entrant number 27 is Jacob Fatu. The Samoan werewolf, another member of the famous Anoa'i family, has quite literally taken the WWE by storm with his charisma, presence, and insane athleticism for a man of his size. He was actually arrested for armed robbery at the age of just 18, and credits seeing his real-life cousins the Usos on the jail TV as his inspiration for turning his life around and becoming a wrestler. Trained by his uncle and the Usos' father, WWE Hall of Famer Rikishi, he started his career in 2012 wrestling for various smaller independent promotions before signing with Major League Wrestling in 2019, where he would capture the World Heavyweight Championship just 6 months since his debut and actually hold the title for a record 819 days. His tenure in MLW would last 5 years before making the jump to the WWE and joining real-life cousin Solo Sikoa as a member of his bloodline and furthering the ever-popular storyline. So far, he only has a short tag title reign to his name with fellow bloodline member Tama Tonga, but with Solo losing the Ula Fala and essentially the Tribal Chief title to Roman Reigns, I think we'll start seeing Jacob insert himself into a more of a leadership role, and eventually he'll be involved in the main event, no question. I also really love his intense badass look and think it would make for one badass pop, and although he'll probably stop doing it now, maybe the hand prayer pose he would do for Solo could make for a good first pop. Down to our final 3 then. Entrant number 28 is going to be Penta. As a huge fan of the Lucha Bros, I was very excited upon hearing supposed interest from the WWE, and then they went ahead and signed Penta. Sadly, we'll have to wait a little while longer for Rey Fenix to come in. Yeah, we won't get into that. But Penta did make his debut just a few weeks ago on the second Raw on Netflix, and I'll admit, I had a little fear of how he may come across, how he may be presented, but both Penta and the WWE have done a fine job. He already looks like a star who has been there for years. But it took him some time to get there. In a career that has spanned over 20 years, he has wrestled all over the world for a multitude of promotions: AAA, Lucha Underground, CMLL, MLW, TNA, AEW, and Ring of Honor, just to name a few, winning multiple titles as both a singles competitor as well as a tag team with his younger brother Rey Fenix, and even a trios champion in AEW with Pac as well. I can't wait to see what we get when Rey does finally arrive, but for now, Penta can definitely have a solid singles run, and with his awesome look, I have zero fear this will make for one sick looking pop. Final 2, entrant number 29 is Lita. The Hall of Famer is without question one of the greatest female performers in WWE history, and out of anyone on this list, she is the one I'm most shocked we don't have a Funko Pop of yet. She started her career in Mexico before being offered a job by Paul Heyman with ECW in 1999, where she would only stay 6 months before joining the WWE. She initially started as a valet and partner of S.A. Rios before joining the Hardy Boys as Team Extreme, where she developed adopt a more alternative image, and her popularity absolutely skyrocketed. She would go on to become a 4-time WWE Women's Champion, winning her first title from Stephanie McMahon in the main event of Raw on August 21st, 2000, with The Rock as the special guest referee, and then captured her second championship once again in the main event of Raw on December 6th, 2004 against Trish Stratus, the first time women had main evented Raw without the involvement of any male superstar. She would later be involved in one of the more craziest storylines in the WWE that blurred the lines of fiction and reality after having a real-life affair with Edge while her then partner Matt Hardy was recovering from an injury, and this got incorporated into the feud. Due to injury, she would only make sporadic wrestling appearances from then on, continuing to manage Edge and be involved in that highly controversial live sex celebration. More sporadic appearances would follow over the years, including an appearance in the first ever Women's Royal Rumble match in 2018, and she would also become a Women's Tag Team Champion with Becky Lynch. Several female wrestlers have spoken of her influence and inspiration on them over the years, and as I said, I'm genuinely shocked she doesn't have a Funko Pop yet. That needs to be rectified sooner rather than later, and if I had a choice, I'd personally go with the Team Extreme look. And our final entrant, guys, number 30, my most wanted WWE Funko Pop, is actually a 2-pack of the Legion of Doom, or perhaps better known as the Road Warriors, generally regarded as one of, if not maybe even the greatest tag team in professional wrestling history. They would start their careers in Georgia Championship Wrestling in the mid-80s, where they would become 3-time NWA National Tag Team Champions. Over the course of the next 5 years, they would wrestle for the AWA, Jim Crockett Promotions, later renamed to WCW, as well as in Japan for both All Japan and New Japan Pro Wrestling. They would then end up with the WWE in 1990, being renamed as the Legion of Doom due to there already being a hugely popular star on the roster named the Ultimate Warrior, though they would still individually be referred to as Road Warrior Hawk and Road Warrior Animal. Despite their popularity, their run was relatively short, though they did capture the WWF Tag Team titles before leaving in 1992. Hawk would return to New Japan, teaming with Kensuke Sasaki and even becoming IWGP Tag Team Champions as the Hellraisers, while Animal nursed a back injury. In 96, they would return to WCW but failed to ever capture the WCW tag titles and left only after 6 months due to a dispute with Eric Bischoff, finding their way back to the WWE in 1997, where they would once again capture the tag titles and feature fairly prominently until early 1998. Sadly, the Road Warriors' trajectory would pretty much be downhill after this. We got the rather lame LOD 2000 and of course the infamous suicide angle playing on Hawk's real-life battle with alcohol and drug abuse. LOD 2000 would not even see the year 2000, as they would leave in 1999, wrestling on the independent circuit until Hawk's death in 2003. Animal would return to the WWE for a short stint, teaming with Heidenreich as a new version of the Legion of Doom, dedicating his run to Hawk, even capturing the WWE Tag Team titles, but would depart less than a year later. Animal would sadly also pass away in 2020. Although the majority of their highs were outside the WWE, there's no question just how big and popular this tag team were. They had such a cool badass look with that spiked armor and face paint. I'm truly hoping we can one day get them in Funko Pop form, as I think they look hella cool. And well, there we go, guys. That is my top 30 most wanted WWE Funko Pops. As I said before, make sure you drop some comments below. Let me know what WWE Funko Pops you guys want to see be made. Otherwise, I really do appreciate taking the time to watch. If you want to check out some of our other content, click these links right here. Otherwise, I hope you enjoy the Rumble, and we'll see you on the next one. Peace out, nerds!